In this section, we're going to talk about researching the hiring manager, the manager you're going to report to. So by the end of this lesson, we'll be able to research the hiring manager if that's possible, and if we know who it is. If we don't know who it is, we'll talk about how to address that as well. So, do you know who the manager will be? This is very important for you to understand. You could work for a great company. You could have the job of a lifetime at the company you just have died to work at, and then have a terrible manager and the entire experience goes south. What's important to you of a good manager? And then find out if this person meets your criteria. If not, it's okay to walk away if this manager is not going to be a good fit for you. Granted, this is the most likely thing to change. The job role probably won't change as often. The company culture probably won't change as often, but the manager could cycle out. Do you want to roll those dice and wait for a manager that you don't fit with to roll out? What if you get a worse manager? Or do you want to know that you could get a great manager out of the gate? Again, knowing that could change over time. And how do you deal with it? Do they have other managers? All things you need to be asking questions about so that you are as protected for yourself as you can be. No reason to start a job with a terrible manager unless you know that it's going to be short-term from networking connections you've talked to within the organization. So if you know who that manager will be, let's just start doing our due diligence. Look them up on LinkedIn. I recommend going to the bottom of their profile and looking at the recommendations. Under recommendations, read them very carefully. You're looking for not only what is said, but what isn't said. If you're needing a manager who's going to support you, do those recommendations back that up? Or are these just friends who are like, oh, Johnny's a great guy? That's not helpful. If it's subjective and not really clear and distinct, very specific in what it's describing for you, it could be a problem that you need to have these questions ready to ask in your interview about the manager. What is their style? Do they manage people this way or that way? Whatever's important to you, you're looking to uncover are those things that are there. If you know who it's going to be, look them up in other social media outlets. Now, word of caution. You don't always have context in other social media outlets, such as Instagram, Facebook. Sometimes sarcasm is badly missed in these. You could have somebody who's putting a very sarcastic post up for their friends that know them very well, and they're doing the exact opposite of what they would normally do in order to be funny. And then you see it as a serious representation of who they are. So just be very cautious that you have the context around what's going on before you just assume that something you saw on social media represents their true beliefs and feelings. Just be cautious. You don't want to go full stalker here. You just want to understand what are some normal things that I'm going to expect to see from this person. Maybe if they've got constantly crass humor, maybe that's not a fit for you. But be on the lookout for things that could be red flags to you. And if you don't know who the hiring manager will be, ask. If you can ask before the interview so you can do your due diligence, that's great. If you can't, if you don't have that opportunity, make sure you ask in the interview. Who will this person be reporting to? Specifically, who will I work for? Because that's information that after the interview, you can then go do your due diligence like we've been talking about here as though we already knew who it was. You need to know who this is going to be. You don't want to go in and get a big surprise on day one. So in conclusion, don't be a stalker, but get the information you need. If it's there, evaluate it. If it's not, build it into your questions so that you can get the information you need to know about the manager you're going to be working for. It is very good for you to understand the person you'll be reporting to the day you walk in the door. And ask yourself, would you want to work for this manager? If the answer is no, you'll take yourself out of consideration, and we'll talk about that in a later lesson. But if you do, great, we've checked a very important box. Your action item, what is one question you wish the person could answer that this manager could answer to help you understand them better. Work on this question, word it very well, wordsmith it to death. This is probably, of all the questions you're going to ask, this is probably one of the most important questions, or multiple questions, in order for you to understand exactly what your day is going to look like once you start working at this organization.